Welcome to Yoga Biz Camp with myself, Michael J. I'm a yoga business coach with 25 plus years of experience as a creative, a total tech geek, and a yoga business owner. Welcome to Yoga Biz Camp Season 2. That's right, and we are starting today with, I really want to get to more just true studio chats with studio owners, how they're doing it, how they've fared getting through all the tough times. And, there's some that are really rocking it. And Jennifer Pahl is my guest today. Jennifer is a studio owner of Twist Yoga on the suburbs of Portland. And I see Jen, she is rocking it online, trying to figure out the automations. She is in charge of getting new clients into her business. And what I love about Jen, she just straight up says how it is. And she has so many great tips for yoga studio owners. So here is Jen. Welcome to Yoga Biz Camp Season 2. And I am so excited to have my good friend, fellow consultant, fellow mind body champ, studio owner extraordinaire, Jennifer Pahl. Welcome, Jennifer.
Wow, gosh, I'm so happy to be here. I've been fangirling you from afar for season 1, and now that I'm on it, I feel like I'm just like it's very privileged. I put lipstick on and everything.
I feel honored for that. So, do you like being called Jennifer or Jen?
Gosh, you know what? I have, stages of life where I was Jenny with a Y, then I was Jenny with an IE with a heart on top, and then I was Jen, and then I was Jennifer, and then I went by my last name. So you know what? Anything goes.
Oh, it all goes. Okay, good. I'm just going to read your bio, Jen. After many years, Jen spent dabbling in every fitness style known to womankind. Twist Yoga founder Jennifer Pahl literally landed on the yoga mat with an injured shoulder and a body that can be described as anything but flexible. She was certainly not a traditional Zen person, but she immediately fell in love with how yoga made her feel. Isn't that the truth? It quickly became clear that yoga was more than just Jennifer's personal passion, it was her calling. She wanted to share the incredible feeling of empowerment and presence she experienced from yoga as many people as possible. So she left her corporate career in finance behind to open Twist Yoga, a supportive studio providing yoga, meditation, functional fitness classes to the greater Portland community. I'm dying to go there. 2 years later, she launched Twist Your Workplace, providing corporate wellness solutions for American workplaces. The students loved the in-studio classes, but really wanted to be able to practice with the same amazing teachers from home or on the road. In 2018, she launched online classes at Twist Yoga again. Twist Yoga Anytime. When she's not teaching, Jennifer can be found speaking at local events, writing for wellness magazines and blogs, traveling and spending time with her 2 kids, husband and 2 rescue dogs, Elma and Dante. She is also a certified mind-body business consultant, a legacy ambassador for Lululemon, and is part of MindBody One's Champion Network as a board member. She served 6 years on the board of the Lake Oswego School Foundation and a proud public school supporter.
Wow, I've never heard anyone read the whole thing out loud. I'm kind of sweating.
I just was looking at your email, and I love how with your studio, you shout your core values: show respect, inspire connection, feel happiness, be curiously authentic, and always be a student. Can you talk a little bit about that? And
Yeah, when I started my business in 2013, I had never owned a small business before. I was not a yoga teacher. And so I really just had decided I fell into yoga much later in life. And there was just no studios that were close to me. It was like a beautiful time in the Portland area.
I remember that day when I opened. I was the only studio. It's lovely.
Oh gosh. Can you imagine having that problem now? So I really came from such a business side of things. And I was really lucky that the majority of my career, I worked for a company that really put internal and external customers, so their employees and then their customers first. And so I kind of grew up with this core value really being the core of the business. And so when I started thinking about, first of all, I knew I wanted to open a business and I knew what I wanted to like quote unquote sell, which was connection. I just didn't physically know what I would sell. I didn't know if I was going to
Yeah.
sell purses or I was going to sell yoga.
Yeah.
And so to me, the first thing that I thought of was kind of like the core of the business and how do I want people to feel when they come in? And I'm a big believer that I don't sell yoga, and a card shop doesn't necessarily sell cards. Now you may go there and get those things when you leave, but if you really want to be a special business and really kind of more of that heart-centered style of business that also makes a profit, you really have to think about how people are feeling and the why of why they're coming. So
Yeah.
those core values came at the very, very beginning of as I was imagining what the studio would look like. And boy, I tell you what, I revisit them every year, and I might tweak a word, but I haven't changed them in probably 5 years.
Yeah.
And they're what I use for every decision, every
Well,
hiring decision, every firing decision, every time that I'm trying to think like, oh, we should have a new, maybe we should start doing Pilates or we should do a retreat or something like that. I go back to those core values and I ask myself, do these fall into the core values? And I am a big believer. If it's not a hell yeah, then it's a no.
so
So
did you know, I'm just curious because I work with a lot of studios, and when they start, when I'm meeting with them halfway through their business, let's say, a lot of them don't have the core values. So how did you know that you needed core values when you started? Because most don't. I think it's more of a common thing now.
right.
And I'd actually, when I start with a brand new studio, I don't go anywhere until we figure that out. Like that is like the top number one place to start for a yoga teacher or for a studio for me, because it is the
Yeah.
northern star of the business. It keeps you on
Yep.
track.
And I think you're right. I do think it's kind of a newer thing that we're starting to pay attention
Yeah.
to. And now we see them everywhere. I was in
Yeah.
Whole Foods the other day and they have theirs big up on the
Yeah.
wall and they're so great. And I'm kind of like a junkie whenever I go places. When we've done our tours at the Mind Body headquarters, they have theirs up. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I agree. I think that we're starting to see them more. And I think it depends on your background and if you were exposed to core values before. The other thing that I find that is really interesting is understanding if you have your own personal core values and then you have your business core
Okay.
values. You might
Yeah.
also have your teacher core values.
Yeah.
So I think when people are first starting businesses, a lot of times they're getting a little bit muddied and frustrated, like trying to decide, are these my core values or my business core values, or are they the same,
Yeah.
or do they have crossover? So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, great to have a different core values for the teachers, because I always have my studios put their core values on their onboarding manual and the agreement with the teacher that the new teacher agrees to how we run the business and what's important to us. So having
yeah,
it upfront on the hiring part is super important too.
Yeah, we have ours up. We don't have anything in the practice room except the core values. They're above the mirror. So people see them every time they go in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and I think the more that you can play into those core values and bring them to the forefront in, positive ways. I went through an accelerator program through the entrepreneur organization, and I was in their accelerator program for 3.5 years. And they're a global organization that takes businesses that have revenue under 500,000. And then within 2 years, their goal is to have them graduate into their full entrepreneur organization where you have revenues over $1 million. And they are big believers. Core values is something that they go back to over and over. And they kind of teach you how to, I mean, you can write core values, but if you don't actually implement them,
Yeah.
then they don't have any purpose,
Yeah.
So they've done things like some examples that I learned from them were, maybe every other month you focus on one core value. So if one of ours is always be the student. So maybe in January, we really focus on that core value, that always be the
Oh, I
student. And we
love
look
that.
for
So really
ways.
getting them to live the value.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like I've seen some businesses that have a bigger staff, maybe their teachers are W-2. Our teachers are kind of a combination between independent contractors and W-2. So we don't have as many like quote unquote staff to implement this. They might have actual note cards and they have 5 core values. They have 5 different note cards. Each note card is a different core value. And if I see a student or another teacher really exemplifying fuel happiness, I write, oh my gosh, I saw that it was so nice how you went and got the props for someone else. Thank you so much for fueling happiness at Twist Yoga. And you hand that to them. And then it kind of just keeps that at the forefront of the mind.
I love that because, I mean, I know from running the studio for 13 years, you're only as good as your instructors. I'm going to jump in here, peeps, because Jen is just offering some amazing information here, some such great tips on really her values being what drives every decision about her business. So on that note, I believe that so much that I actually have a free resource. So if you go to my Instagram, which is at YogaBizChamp, and go to my bio, there's a link that you can click there. And my video that I did for the Yoga Alliance on finding your business purpose goes over mission, vision, and values. So head on over to Instagram at YogaBizChamp and click on the link and you'll find it right there. Back to Jen. One of the reasons I brought you on here, Jen, is because I mean, you keep it real. You really do. I
did bring my let that shit go.
Let that shit go. She's holding up a mug that says "Let that shit go." But,
it's a practice.
But yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy kind of time, and but what I really would love to talk to you about today, because I think there needs to be a little bit more understanding of this out there, of running a studio that it's not like it used to be, where we kind of used to open up a little hippie shop and open and close when we want. And, like we have, there's real bills to pay. And so what I love about you is that you have learned over all this time how to put systems in place and what it takes to hustle. And there's 2 things that studio owners, have to really get good at. And that is 1, getting students in, and 2, retaining them, and 3, maintaining a great team.
Yeah, 100%. And, since I started in 2013 and I didn't know what I didn't know, right? I came to it
as along. I did too. Yeah.
Right. Like how hard can it be? And back then, obviously, since there wasn't so many yoga studios, I really thought, and I did a business plan. I'm, old school like that. And in the business plan, I put like hardly any dollars in there for marketing, because I just thought, well, I'll just go. I was kind of on a main street, and I'm in just south of Portland. So in kind of a suburb of Portland. So it's a smaller town.
Yeah, it's like
I thought, I'll hang up a little sign and everyone will be like, oh my gosh, there's a yoga studio in town. Yay. We don't have to drive downtown anymore. Like, why am I going to have to market? And I just did not even realize that. So, I think that in my journey of the past 8 years, I have, changed that immensely. Now I have a much bigger marketing budget. But as far as processes, I think you also have to like check in where you came from. If you're like a loosey-goosey type person and you're okay with kind of like, oh, I'll just deal with this then, and I'll deal with that then you might be a little bit more comfortable not having processes. I came from a business that had standard operating processes, SOPs for everything. It was a company that ran a little bit like much grander scale, totally different business, but it ran 24 hours a day. So when one person came in to do a job, they had to do it the same as the next person that came in to do the job. And I took that with me. I'm very comfortable in processes. It makes me feel a little bit more calm and in control. So over the years, I've definitely really worked on developing those processes. But that being said, at the beginning, I did everything. So for the first 2 years, I cleaned the studio. I did the books. I did the marketing. I did, like that. I didn't want to take on a lot of debt. Right.
Yep. I was the same way. I didn't open up with any debt. It was IKEA flooring, IKEA at the time, IKEA cubbies.
Wow.
Yeah, like, and so, you know, and but I had the marketing side of things, and so I found it very easy to get people in. But when I opened up and I filled the studio, I was like, oh, that's it. I've got my students. I'm like, oh, but they drop off. Oh, you have to keep, I kind of called it feeding the beast, right? So you've
Yes.
always got to keep feeding new students to keep the studio going. So let's talk about new students. You
Yeah,
know,
it's a
so
great time for that.
yeah, you've probably learned a lot over the years about how to find your ideal student.
Yeah, and I think that you pointing out your ideal student is another one of those things that I know
It
I
is.
struggled with,
Yeah.
and customers that I work with now, clients, they struggle with this. Like, I think determining who, and it can change because at the beginning you might think it's one person, but determining who your quintessential client is so important. Because, you know, obviously you want to speak to them, you want to know where they hang out, you want to know what their pain points are.
Yeah.
And I know when I first opened the studio, I'm like, well, everybody can come. I mean, I can have a high school student who plays soccer, and I can have an 85-year-old grandma, you know, take a restorative class. So at the beginning, I did not define who my
Yeah.
quintessential client
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Which means, you know what they say, right? If you market to everyone, you market to no one.
Yeah. So who is your client?
So, you know, now that we have kind of a few different businesses going on, we have quintessential clients in each one of those groups. So, but for my core business, for getting yoga students in who are practicing 2 or 3 times a week, but we're usually looking at a woman between 35 and 50. That's kind of a big range, but for women, you know, you can have children at all different ages these days, which is awesome. So kind of looking at people who have kids like in high school and getting ready to go to college, I really love, because they're starting to have some independence. And if they work, their hours are a little bit more flexible. They're healthy. They prioritize their learning and their own wellness. They are very locally minded, and you know, being around us, being in a small business is really important to them. So, and I go as far, and I can geek out on this all day long. Like, I love the idea of looking at your quintessential client and actually, you know, drilling all the way down. Like, where do they shop? What books do they read?
Yeah.
You know, right?
Well, because that's part of it, right? Because then it's about getting in front of their eyeballs. Well, I'm going to jump in again here because for some magical reason, Jen is just jumping right into what I consider to be the pillars of starting a yoga business that's successful and profitable. So along with that, I have another Yoga Alliance Business of Yoga webinar, free resource available for you called Finding Your Ideal Student, which goes through the whole process exactly about how to get in front of your ideal yoga student's eyeballs. So head on over to my Instagram at YogaBizChamp, click on my profile, click follow me at the same time, and you will find a direct link to the video, and you can even watch it on your mobile device directly from my profile. How do you've defined your audience? How do you kind of figure out where they're, you know, is it coffee shops?
Yeah.
Is it Facebook? Is it like, are you kind of figuring
Yeah.
out where you're finding those people?
Right. You know, and that's, so now that I have some part-time staff, we really determine those KPIs. So the key performance indicators that we measure, my number one job at the studio, and the number one thing I judge myself by and make my goals with, is bringing new students in. So that's for our new student sales funnel. My job is to get them in the door.
Can we just
My
stop a
front
second
desk.
here?
Pardon?
Folks, if you're listening, this is the owner of the business that is saying it is her job to get students in the door. She's hustling. Yeah. After all these years, she's still hustling this. I just want to get that very clear, folks.
Yeah, I mean, unless you have somebody else that you've hired to do that you trust for that, but that is, That is what my number one KPI is. It's actually the only thing that I measure myself by. So I bring them in the door. Then I have somebody whose job is to get every single new student into our new student special. So that is their KPI. So when I run, they're paid hourly, and then they get a bump depending upon what percentage they hit of conversion from first time to new student special. We also let people, if they've done, a drop in here and there, we still try to get them into, or they've done a drop in 10 times. I don't care. I still want them in our new student funnel because it's so tight, and our conversions from new student intro into membership is much higher than anybody that takes any other pricing.
And I'm imagining you're doing, all the things we're trained on, and that is, personal touch points and value added emails and automation.
Yeah. And I think that once you kind of, and for, let's see, for 7 years, we had the traditional, and it's funny because at the beginning, I just looked around and I was like, oh, that's what they do. Okay, I'm going to do that. Oh, that's what they charge. Oh, I'm going to do that. Like, I just was so afraid to say why are they doing that? I don't know. And go back to my core value, always be the student. As a student, would I want that? So we had a 30-day intro offer for 7 years. And it was as many classes as you want in those 30 days, because that's what everyone did.
Yeah.
And then I recently changed to a 3-week, because what
3 weeks, the magic number. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. Because what we found in a month, and this is just for our business, and I think it's important for everybody to track this, that the students who did at least 8 classes in a month had a much higher conversion rate to membership than people who did less than 8.
Yeah.
So we did a couple different things there. We had a little, speaking of, processes and incentives, we made a little branded water bottle. And in your intro month, once you hit that 8, you got the water bottle, and we made a big deal, and it was sitting, up at the front desk. And so, that was just one little thing to get them in for that 8th class, because we knew that that meant they were kind of approximately doing 2 to 3 classes a week. Yeah. Which is when you start to feel the difference.
Can we just stop there for a second? For the folks that don't understand this, if somebody comes and takes your class once as a drop-in, they're judging your studio on that one experience with that one teacher that they may not connect with. So having this opportunity to test the menu is the magic thing, and getting people to come back. So sorry, Jen, just wanted to
I just always go back. If you went into a business for a one-time visit, what is you'd have to really fall in love with it to say, oh yeah, I'm going to get a membership, and I'm going to have a recurring thing where you have my credit card.
Money. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I wouldn't as a student, I need to kind of get the vibe. And then also, you're just not going to feel a difference. You might go one time and you're so sore for 3 days, or you felt like you weren't, it was too easy, or it was too hard, or whatever. And then you're not going to come back. So those, I think the unlimited ones are definitely the way to go. So then we switched to, now we're on a 3 weeks, and we raised our prices. We can talk pricing forever. We raise our prices every year. So we raised the price and we shortened it. Because I found that, that last week in the month, unless you really had somebody who was coming a ton, sometimes people would start to fall off because either they're out of town or whatever. But that 3-week, energy was really strong and worked really well. I'm sorry, but I just had this thing jump onto my lap. If you're in the podcast only, I have a very, I have a puppy that, he's not a puppy anymore, but he's very obsessed and needed to get on my lap. So now I have the studio dog on my lap now. So my front desk person, her KPI, we want to get every first-time person into our new student funnel, because that is where we really shine.
The drop in.
Right. And then my studio manager, her job, her KPI is, I get them into the studio, front desk gets them into new student, studio manager converts from new student to membership. So it's a very seamless, very easy to calculate who's doing what. We know what our jobs are, and we know what our percentage of conversion goals are for each month.
I love it. Well, I'm going to jump in one last time here because for some reason she is just picking up on everything that I'm offering from the Yoga Alliance Business of Yoga webinars, because my final webinar that I did for the Yoga Alliance was how to price your yoga offerings. Again, I'm going to drop that in my link in my Instagram feed, which is at YogaBizChamp, and give a follow to me. If by some reason you're listening to this podcast way down the line and it's not there, send a direct message. I'll happily give you a point to in the right direction. Anyway, back to Jem. Let's just talk about the personal touch. I love that you do the water bottles, but it does take a personal touch to create community. And one of my things was my teachers were not allowed to stretch on their mat before class. That they had to be upfront, greeting people by name when they walked in. If they didn't know them, they were logged into the Mind Body screen and putting a face to the name and what have you. So can you talk a little bit about that personal touch about building community? And especially now where we've gone through this storm and still kind of going through it, how have you utilized that through, kind of keeping your community?
So I have three things that come to mind there. We did start taking a picture on the check. We were using the check-in little app on an iPad through MindBody. We were doing a photo and putting our students' photo in their profile. Yeah. So that way it became a little bit easier for everybody to put a face with a name. Yeah. So that definitely helped. And then I have a little sheet of paper. It's kind of old school, but it's a little pad of paper. And so we are still doing every class hybrid. So every class that's in the studio, we also Zoom. So I have a little pad of paper that says in studio and Zoom. And then we write down the names of everybody that's in studio. And then we write down the names of everybody in Zoom. We give that to the teacher. And then the goal is for the teacher to try to say everybody's name at least once. Yeah. And then I have, we'll note on there a little green star. If it's the person's first visit, the teacher should really pay some extra attention, or if it's birthday, or, I try to make it fairly easy for the teacher to do that. The other thing that we do now that we have these virtual classes is, and different teachers have found different ways to do this. I like to start out kind of acknowledging the people who are at home. So I'll say like, oh, Sally and Larry and Mike and Jennifer, I see you guys at home. Good job, keeping your practice going. I acknowledge your presence in the room. Just to kind of break that wall.
Yeah, totally. And you can do it virtual for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just another thing for the teachers though. Like I feel like a lot of times people don't appreciate how hard the teachers are working, and having this added element of having to teach to the room and then also teach to people at home at the same time is really, really challenging. I mean, I do think it's made our teachers better teachers and better cuers because it's a different.
Yeah. You have to be very specific on virtual. I only teach virtual now, and you have to be very, very specific, but you can still create that community, I think, with your people. Hey, let's get a real talk now about software and systems. I mean, I think most people think that they can get away with maybe a little email account and a booking system, but it kind of is not that way now, right? It's I think you're heavily invested in software and probably have a lot of reoccurring monthly subscriptions, I would imagine.
Yeah, I do at this point, but my business is also 8 years old. So at the beginning, I was super scrappy. I did not want to take on debt when I opened up my studio. Like it's still like that. Like my front desk at the studio literally is a piece of furniture I took from my house. I cut off the legs a little shorter. I put it at the front. The bins that I have that store all our props were bins that I had in my kids' playroom. So when I opened up our studio, every single thing that I purchased needed to have revenue tied to it. So for me, there were certain things at the beginning that I had Mind Body, and I swear that my Mind Body, no one believes me, but I should go back and look at it. I swear it was $49 a month. I mean, because it didn't do anything really except scheduling.
I think mine was, I think I was probably $79 or something.
Maybe mine was 79.
Canadian.
Yeah. I mean, it was so cheap.
Yeah.
And
well, before that, we did paper punches.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally before, like MindBody was the one that took us from paper punches and tracking in a
spiral notebook.
Yeah, with everybody's names with 10 punches on it, crossing them out. Like it was just, I hired a person just to cross out punches in a book.
Crazy. We're dinosaurs. Yeah, so I did. I mean, at the beginning, just because I was so scrappy, I'm not saying that this is the way for everyone to go, but I had MailChimp, the free version of MailChimp.
Yeah.
And that's what I used for my newsletters. And then I went through a stage where MindBody started having all these partners. So it was probably year 3, and I had a little bit more of a budget and more money to put back into the studio. Then I went bonkers and I got everything. I'm like, I'm going to get that, and I'm going to get that. I'm going to get Perkville, and I'm going to get Fit Metrics, and I'm going to get blah, blah, blah. Like whatever came out, I was like, I'm going to get that. I'm going to get that.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, this is crazy. I'm getting these things and I'm not putting policies in place. I'm not attaching them to KPIs, and I'm not measuring them. Right. So then I said, that's it. I'm cutting everything. I'm going back to square one, and I'm going to be a little bit more strategic in what I choose, because some things were working and some weren't working. And I'm sure it was a combination of they weren't the right fit for my studio or my students. And I didn't put the energy into really creating a process around them to make them work. So now I'm much more strategic in what we do. Also, MindBody can do so many more things now that you don't necessarily need to have all those add-ons.
Yeah, like now you can do subs and all of that stuff. And yeah, and now, so I know what you use MindBody for your booking system. You use BrandBot, I believe, for your marketing.
Yes. And I did use Marketing Suite for about a year and a half. I need like a web series, like Don't Do What I Did.
Well, I think wasn't everybody screaming that you're not going to be able to get BrandBot soon, and you were like, oh no, I've got to get on it.
I don't want to miss out. I'll get it now. And I just spent a year and a half building out all my Marketing Suite. Oh, great. Let me just rebuild everything out in BrandBot. So I use BrandBot for my automations and my newsletters and things like that. And I'm a big fan. I'm getting more into it and kind of seeing what it can do in a little bit greater detail.
I have one more free resource for you, and that is going to my website, which is yogabizcamp.com, and you'll see a link to free resources. Within those free resources, I have a whole bunch of softwares that I recommend. These are things that I've personally tried. I know the companies, fully trust and recommend. So many of them have free trials. So again, just go to yogabizcamp.com, and there's a link right at the top to all of my free resources, including lots of other things.
We use Zoom, so I don't use any of the MindBody live stream, and mostly because we had set up, strangely enough, we went into the virtual land and on demand 2 years before the pandemic. And so we were already recording classes and had an on-demand product. So I already kind of had that in place, and I didn't want to switch that up. So we have a Zoom integration for that. We use Marvelous, which used to be NamaStream, for our on-demand platform.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a monthly.
So you separated that. Do you still bill it through MindBody, or is it all separate?
That was the hard part at the beginning. And we've done it 2 different ways, of course. And why would you do it one way? Because if you can do it 2 ways and make it more complicated. So we have some people that go direct to Twist Yoga Anytime, which is on the Marvelous platform. We have some people who at the beginning, when it was too confusing for them to set up another payment option, we sold it through MindBody. So we probably have a handful of people who have a recurring payment, and then they go to Twist Yoga Anytime with a code and get it for quote unquote free.
Awesome. And the success you just had, you wrote something about something online. I saw you wrote about doing follow-up emails and then an email just before this, was it a sale or something like that? And you had a really good response
Yeah.
to that.
Emails are just, they're so complicated and
Yeah.
hard. And it's like our open rates I've seen kind of fluctuate all over the place. And I continue going back to that core value of always be the student. Like I get inundated with emails from people and texts now. And since I'm an old dinosaur, I'm not like, my college aged kids that are used to getting text promos. To me, like my text is like for my family and friends, and I want to have fun in there. I don't really want businesses texting me that much unless it makes things easier for me. So like, I love when I make a doctor's appointment and then they're like, okay, click this button to let us know you're here, or click this button to rebook your appointment.
Yeah.
So for me, I want anything that comes into my text to just make things easier. I don't want it to be like necessarily really salesy, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
So, but getting people to open emails is getting harder and harder. There's so much clutter and there's so much noise. So I've been trying to figure out or ways to get people to look forward to the email as well as open up the email. A couple ways for them to look forward to the email is to kind of send it on the same cadence. So they're expecting it on Sunday night. And some people say, oh, you only need to send a newsletter, once a month, or and in BrandBot, obviously sending more, you can be super targeted in the messages that you send, which I think are great. The hard part with that is like, how do you get really targeted on a cadence necessarily? If it's not something that I'm sending to a specific person because there's an event coming up and I know they said they were interested in retreats and I want to make sure they get a message about retreats. But what I did with this one, and one of the trends that I'm kind of testing out, is more simple emails that are text only. Yep. And not all kinds of graphics, because obviously so many people are looking at them on their phone. They might even have your beautiful graphics turned off, or they might take too long to load or whatever. So simple text ones. And what I did was we were trying to decide if we should switch a class time for 2 different classes at the beginning of the year. So I sent a text email, a regular text-based email just to people who had taken that class in the last year and a half, and asked them, hey, we're thinking about moving 5:30 to 5:45. What do you think about that? Just reply to this email with 5:30 or 5:45. Super easy for them to reply, but they're opening the email. They're actually replying to us. So the email system that they're using is saying, oh, well, gosh, that info@twist-yoga.com actually isn't a spammy email because they just replied to it. And we got better response on that than when we do like a survey where they have to click on a button, even if it's answer 5 questions. And at the end, I'm giving them a $5 credit on their account. Yeah. They just don't want to do, I don't want to do it. So if I'm going to my core values of always be the student, why am I asking them to do something I don't want to do?
They're making it super simple. And also call to action. I think a lot of people don't play around with the call to action so much, right? Like actually asking people to take an action. Click here, and actually have it go to the direct booking link if that's the case, or, instead of people having to do 5 clicks to get somewhere. And where out there are people finding you? Through website, Instagram, Facebook? Where do you find walking by? What's your kind of
we're being more intentional. One of the other KPIs that I put into effect, because we've ebbed and flowed with our intake form, asking people how they heard about us. And then there was a trend where you just wanted that intake form to be pre-COVID. You wanted that intake form to be super short so that they could get it done a little bit quicker, and it was, less input. So now we're going back to, I'm having our front desk very carefully find out from every single new student how they heard about us. So that has to be filled in, and we're running reports if that index isn't filled in on a particular person. And so it's not that much different than it was before. I think people are finding us in Google searches or search engine searches,
Yeah.
and from a friend.
Yeah.
So that's definitely the two places. So we have 2 Google ads that we run. One is for our teacher training. We run 2 teacher trainings a year, and one is for a new student intro special.
Awesome.
And that's it. Yeah. Those are, I hardly ever change them. Sometimes I'll go in and I'll tweak, oh, it's a new year, blah, 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 but they're fairly basic. I don't know. Yeah. I spend maybe $300 a month on those.
One of the things that I found, so it sounds, I was in a community of, my studio was in a community of 100,000 people. And I think you're on the outskirts, I was on the outskirts of Vancouver, you're on the outskirts of Portland. I think there's such a benefit to that. I think than trying to be in the big city, because you can get a reputation in a town, right? That we were known for giving back to the local hospice and doing fundraisers and things like that. So is that community has helped you being in a community that way? And also what I found with marketing, and I'm doing this with my studios I work with, is it's so easy to do a very targeted market campaign to your area on social media, so that you're not sending clicks all over, the state. It's like literally in your neighborhood you can market. Are you utilizing either of those kind of methods?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the community part. I mean, that is, I mean, we, everything. A hub of happiness is kind of like what one of our marketing terms are. And being connected to the community has always been, vital to being a small business. And, I live in the community. My kids went, K through 12th grade in our community. I live a mile away from the studio. I am all about that. We've donated to, every single school, every sports team, all of that stuff. Yep. Like that part to me is, one of the best parts of having a small business is that connection. So it's easier to get a reputation and kind of be known as a partnership, because I do view it that way. We do classes for our local police department. So I feel like we're definitely kind of integrated into the community like that, but I set it up like that. That was one of my foundations from the beginning. But as far as Instagram and we don't do any Instagram or Facebook ads currently. We have in the past. And during the pandemic, it just got, we tried out some different ones. We tried to let people know that we had virtual classes, and we tried to, market a little bit more our on-demand classes. But I felt as though the price for that kind of stuff, especially like in the past 2 years, like different lockdown stages where everybody was at home, everybody was on their phone, everybody was shopping digitally, the prices went up so much because there was just so many people advertising and people were nervous to make purchases, that it didn't really translate for us. And also, I mean, we've been here for 8 years. So the majority of people that live in my community already know about us. Now it's just re-educating the people who haven't been in, like, okay, maybe I will give it a try.
Yeah. And Google reviews, I think, are kind of magic these days as well. And I'm having a great deal of success with my clients using, I mentioned this on one of the other podcasts, but Referizer. For the Google reviews, it's working really well for them. And it gave, Eric from the Champ program, he was on one of the podcasts, and they're the #1 Google reviewed studio in, I think it's California or something like that, because of the program. So what Referizer does, if it's a 1 to 3 review, it sends that review to the owner to deal with. If it's a 4 or 5, it sends them directly to Google. And so it's
That's
really been
nice.
building their Google reviews, which in turn really helps with sales, right?
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
we have a give us a Google review kind of built in at a specific point in our brand bot too. Like once they've taken X number of classes in
Okay.
a
Yeah,
certain
yeah,
amount of
yeah.
period,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
we know they probably like us if they're coming that many
Yeah.
times, because and people want to know, like, and especially now, I feel like you can really leverage that. Like our clients are like, how can we help you? Like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for still being open because so many
Yeah.
places are closed.
Yeah.
What can I do? Should I buy another mat? Like, no, you've already bought 3 mats.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just give us
Yeah.
a Google review and keeping that
Yeah.
simple with that link. And we have a 4.9 stars in Google. So and the mind body reviews are great too. So I
Yeah.
usually don't need to push towards those because if people are using the apps, then they typically will
Yeah.
go in and leave a review there.
So Jen, I kind of feel like this has to be part one of three. Because I think we could just talk forever on systems and studios. And so let's kind of round this off for today. And I want to know something about you that most people wouldn't know.
Woo! Lordy.
Oh, first of all, I will preface that with I know something about you that you love the F word as much as I do.
Oh, it's one of my favorite words. Yes, I'm a big fan. I definitely think that dropping in some F bombs here and there, where appropriate, I think has a little power and weight behind it. So, oh my gosh, something about me. Gosh, there's so many things I don't even know where to start. Um, okay, here's something that's completely inappropriate and probably will be a surprise. I've been to the Playboy Mansion and swam in the grotto.
Oh, very cool. Do you have photographs?
Oh, those will not be seen. Yes, I do. No, I mean it was a super cool experience.
That's a
It was
story.
7 or 8 years ago, and so the Playboy brand actually went public, and as part of their new company, they had to rent out the mansion and have it be used for fundraisers. So I went to a company's fundraiser party there, but they had Playboy bunnies and they were like, hey, if you want to go swimming, you can swim in the grotto. So that was an experience. And that's all I'll tell you. If you want more, there's going to have to be wine involved.
And what is your favorite business app that you use? Like on a regular basis, what kind of app do you use the most?
A business app. I mean, I do make good use of all of the mind body apps. I mean, those are definitely something that I use
I love the
often.
business app for the snapshot, where you can just sort of see quick look at the daily sales or who's in a class.
Okay, so yeah, so I liked that until 2020, and then when I looked at that and it was all red arrows going down, I immediately had like a small sweating armpit situation. But now I like to look at that again. I didn't let myself look
I
at that
love that
for
you
a long
blocked that
time.
for a year or so.
I'm like, this is not sparking me joy. We use Spotify mostly for our music. So sometimes I like to go back and look at different specific classes and special occasion classes that we had. And so not necessarily an app, but a piece of software that I use to track everything and kind of keep a big picture of things is Trello. So that's the kind of the project management that I use. But I'm still schizo there. Like I have a paper planner, I have my iCalendar, I have Trello, I have stuff in Mindbody, I have stuff in Google Sheets. So I still have
I'm this, yeah. Yeah, it needs it. You need the time to put it. I literally went and did that and put it all. I'm using ClickUp, but I kind of
Mhm.
just put it all into there, like all the links to my resources and stuff for clients. And it's a big thing gathering all your data into
It
one place.
is.
Yeah,
It is. And before we go, one thing that I wish I would, speaking of like being tight in the community,
yeah,
one thing that I wish I would have done, this is a little nugget for anyone who's new to their business or starting it out, is just have a Google Doc or somewhere where every time you make a donation to any kind of a charity, be it like a dollar donation or free class cards or anything like that, maybe the soccer team and they have a poster and you donate $100 to get your logo on it. Write down the name of that charity or organization or not-for-profit that you donated to. And you can either have a hidden page on your website that you can refer to, or just start from the beginning, writing down those names, because I wish that I would have done that, because a lot of times, when we really try to really focus on the fact that we're a small locally owned studio, and that's how we're different from the chains that are coming to
yeah,
town. And I'm like, we've donated to everybody. Like, if you
yeah,
have, that's what makes us special.
yeah.
But if I wish I could post right now, it would be a massive list, and
Yeah.
people, I think it could be really, really effective and would have been so easy to do starting at the beginning.
I love this nugget of information from Jen. And on top of that, I'm going to just insert this episode's tip. And this one comes from fellow consultant Crystal Zakolsny. And her tip is to, in whatever system you're using, software system, booking system, is to create a category, a revenue category called donations. And that way, every time you give away a gift card or a donation or a class or a free class, whatever, it gets put under that where there's no charge to it, but you actually have a record in your system for your bookkeeper at the end of the year, and you have a record of your donations. Back to Jen again. I agree with that. And I mean, what I love about that is that you and I kind of, I think, have a similar heart in running the business. And that was I mean, we raised $40,000 for the local hospice over the years. And that was just by putting
Amazing.
shopping days on. But yeah, we donated to so many things. But there's another side to that too, is that you do build. I mean, we don't do it for those reasons, but the byproduct of doing that is that you create a reputation in a small community and you get known as that studio that cares. And I think that beats any marketing dollars out there. Right. It's like, we had photographs all the time of holding the big checks, in the newspaper. We didn't angle for that. We did it because we wanted to give, but that was a byproduct, was that our reputation came from that. So I love that that's an important part of your business. And I think that's a great lesson for yoga business owners for sure. Last
Mhm.
question, your favorite personal app?
My favorite personal app. Okay, well, I am late to the show and I got this Apple iWatch thing, and
Yeah.
oh my gosh. So
You closing
now,
your rings?
oh my God, I'm like, oh, woman possessed. 10:30 last night, I'm running up and down the stairs at my house, right? Oh my gosh, like it is, and I can't quite, I think I might have set things up wrong, because I don't know.
I
For
can
me,
help you. I can help you with that because I live for closing my rings. I have closed them. So as of January 4th, I've closed them every single day for a whole year.
you're
Now
a
I
stud.
had heart surgery a year and a half ago, so I had motivation. But I can't say there's no cheat days in there. Probably one cheat day a week in there.
Yeah,
But it is my mission every single day to stand 12 times a day, to burn
yeah,
600 calories, and to have at least 30 minutes of exercise every single day. And it is
yeah.
doable, right? To me, that's my motivator. I've got people in my core class that I'm teaching today that we all go, okay, start your Apple Watches on our virtual classes. Jen,
I
I
love
want to
it.
thank you. Tell the peeps where they can find you.
Yeah, so they can find my studio website is twist-yoga.com.
In
And
Portland.
you can also find us on Instagram, and it's twistyoga_Lake Oswego. And then from there, you can find, I'm still working on my consultant website. It's so weird to like be like, here I am amazing. Here's pictures of me and all the things I do. I'm like, oh, I don't want to see me anymore and hear any more about me. So that's coming. But and then from there you can find our YouTube channel and all of that goodness. So
Yeah,
we're
and
not on
we'll drop everything
TikTok yet.
into the show notes as well, all the links to you. So Jen, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I'm going to be on another meeting with you in 15 minutes. So
I know. It never ends. Thank you so much, Michael.
Yeah.
Like it's such an honor to chat with you. And I think this is just such a great learning and sharing platform for people that might be feeling like, they have questions or they're disconnected or they're doing this all themselves. So, but you're doing a great work in such a amazing
thank you
circle.
so much. And I think people are going to learn so much from you on like real life yoga studio. And that's going to be my aim for the next little while is that just have these real chats, what it's like running a yoga studio. So I really appreciate your time. I admire you a ton, and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Thank you. What a fantastic way to start season 2. I've got lots of plans for this podcast this year. And if you are enjoying this podcast, getting anything out of it at all, please support us by simply on whatever platform you're listening on, whether it's Spotify, Apple, Google. Make sure you follow us. That helps us a lot. So you're subscribing to us. And if you want to give us a 5-star rating, we'd gladly have that. And if you want to go a little bit further, a review would be fantastic too. Please give me a follow at YogaBizChamp on Instagram. Send me a direct message, say hi. If you're looking to start a business, improve your business, need a little bit of help, I give a 15-minute free consultation. You can get in touch with me for that on my website at www.yogabizcamp.com. See you next time.